whole bunch more than that. So you can see how much of the nephron is in the cortex, but this loop of Henle dips down into the medulla. Okay? And we'll see why that is next time. And several nephrons can enter one collecting tubule, a whole bunch of them actually. Okay? And this just shows what the cells look like at different places along the renal tubule. Like the proximal convoluted tubule cells look totally different than the descending limb of the loop of Henle cells. Okay? And the distal convoluted tubule cells look different yet. And the collecting tubule cells look different yet. Okay? Because they each have different physiology, they do different things. So, okay, and we will eventually get to questions such as we'll name some function and ask what part of the nephron does this occur in? Proximal convoluted tubule, or the loop of Henle, or the distal convoluted tubule, or the collecting tubule. And each place has its own thing, at least one thing that goes on there. Okay, so your book throws in the word renal corpuscle, and I kind of like it. It includes the Bowman's capsule, the glomerular capillary, and these arterioles. The whole thing is called the renal corpuscle. Okay. So we see the afferent arteriole coming in, the blood loses about half of its contents, which is extruded out into the Bowman's capsule and becomes known as the filtrate. The efferent arteriole is smaller. It still has half the plasma and the plasma proteins and the blood cells. No plasma proteins and no blood cells pass out. Okay? And there are little cells that surround the glomerular capillary that actually form what are called filtration slits, so that you get an orifice that is just the optimal size so that the small to medium-sized solutes can pass out, but without losing any bigger ones. We don't want to lose any plasma proteins or antibodies or any of the protein fraction of blood. We don't want to lose any of those. Okay? But they're much larger molecules. Proteins, you need to get the feeling that most of them are huge molecules. Okay? Hundreds of amino acids. So this is really just a slice through the renal corpuscle, doesn't show you much. So, a nice schematic. We really just have two important stages in urine formation. Okay, there is a third stage, but it involves pH regulation. But in the actual formation of urine, we have glomerular filtration. Okay, it's very non-selective. It's where we take everybody off the bus. Okay, and so then the blood that just had everything taken out of it passes in close association, wraps around the renal tubule, and throughout this close association, those things that we want are actively pumped back into the blood. If they are not actively pumped back into the blood, they become a part of urine. This part where we reabsorb the stuff we lost in the first step is called tubular reabsorption. So we have glomerular filtration and tubular reabsorption are the two steps in urine formation. The third one, called secretion, okay, tubular secretion, is just a pH, that's where we either dump or retain bicarbonate ion. Okay. So for the quiz next week, you should know glomerular filtration and tubular reabsorption. Okay, so, and this is a little summary. Glomerular filtration is very non-specific, dependent only on size. So we take about half the plasma, and if we filter 180 liters of plasma a day, we're gonna have to reabsorb almost all of that. And that happens throughout, throughout the second phase, which is tubular reabsorption, okay? We reabsorb gobs of solute, and of course, the laws of osmosis dictate that water follows solute. So as we reabsorb the solute back into the blood, water follows the solute back into the blood. But part of that we can control, and that's the part of water retention that we'll talk about, that we can control. We reabsorb a huge amount of water, that we would follow all that solute back into the blood. But the part that we control is called obligatory water retention, and we'll talk about that part that we can control, because it's big stuff. And if you have a problem with obligatory water retention, you might have high blood pressure. That's the most common cause, okay? So finally then, I don't know if this is the last picture, but it's getting close. We have glomerular filtration, step 1, where we take everybody off the bus, and tubular reabsorption, where we ask all the good guys back, okay? And it's very selective, and we reabsorb lots and lots of solute, and water follows solute back in, so that we reabsorb most of the water that we took out in part 1. And that which is not reabsorbed becomes urine and is eliminated from the body. Okay? So Wednesday in lab. So this was kind of a short lecture. Remember that next week, okay, when we have our really long lecture.